Welcome back to Books and Bytes. Ever feel like you're talking to a brick wall? Like some people just operate on a completely different wavelength.
Oh yeah, we've all been there. It's that frustrating feeling of just not being able to get through to someone.
Well, in this deep dive, we're going to give you the tools to decode those communication breakdowns. We're exploring a framework that reveals the 4 fundamental communication styles that shape how we all think and interact. By the end of this, you'll have a whole new understanding of why people react the way they do and, more importantly, how to connect with just about anyone.
We're diving into Surrounded by Idiots by Thomas Erikson. Now, don't let the title throw you off. It's not about calling people names. It's about recognizing that those idiot moments are often just a case of miscommunication stemming from these fundamental differences in how we approach the world.
Right. At the heart of it all is the DISC model, which categorizes behavior into 4 main types: red, yellow, green, and blue, each with its own strengths, weaknesses, and ways of communicating.
By understanding these 4 personality types, you can unlock a whole new level of communication mastery. Think of it as having a secret decoder ring for human behavior.
So let's crack the code, starting with the first color, red. What are the hallmarks of a red personality?
Well, reds are the go-getters, the leaders, the ones who charge ahead. They're driven, assertive, and they love a challenge. Think of someone who walks into a room and immediately commands attention.
So they definitely have a presence. But what about their communication style? How do they typically interact with others?
Reds are direct. They get straight to the point, no beating around the bush. They value efficiency and results above all else, so they can be very blunt sometimes. They might come across as impatient or even aggressive, especially to people who are not used to that kind of directness.
So if you need to communicate with a red, what's the best approach? How do you make sure your message gets through?
Clarity is key with reds. Be concise, focus on the bottom line, and don't waste their time with small talk. Present your ideas in a clear and logical way, highlighting the benefits and the potential for results.
Got it. So no long-winded explanations or emotional appeals, just the facts and the potential for winning.
Exactly. Now let's move on to yellow, the inspiring type. They're pretty much the opposite of reds in terms of communication style.
Oh, really? In what way?
Well, if reds are all about efficiency and results, yellows thrive on connection and enthusiasm. They're all about big ideas, brainstorming, and spreading that positive energy.
They sound like the life of the party. What are some of the challenges in communicating with a yellow?
Sometimes their boundless energy can make them seem a little scattered. They can jump from one idea to the next, get easily distracted, and even overcommit, which can lead to disappointment if they don't follow through. And sometimes their optimism can cloud their judgment, making them overlook potential risks.
So how do you effectively communicate with someone who's always buzzing with ideas and excitement?
The key is to keep things engaging and upbeat. Let them share their thoughts and bounce ideas around. Don't be afraid to get a little creative and have some fun with it, but at the same time, gently guide them back to the task at hand if they start to wander too far.
So a little bit of structure within the fun, basically. Makes sense. Okay, let's move on to green, the stable personality. What makes them tick?
Greens are all about peace and harmony. They're the calm, steady presence in any situation. They're great listeners, loyal friends, and they really value stability and routine.
They sound like the kind of people you want on your team when things get tough. What are some things to keep in mind when communicating with a green?
Be patient and reassuring. Greens are not fans of sudden changes or conflict, so they need time to adjust and process information. They're also very sensitive to criticism, so it's important to approach any disagreements with diplomacy and respect.
So basically, create a safe and comfortable environment for them to open up.
Exactly. Emphasize collaboration, highlight how your ideas will benefit the group, and give them the reassurance they need to feel secure.
Got it. And finally, we come to blue, the analytical personality type. Tell us about them.
Blues are all about logic, facts, and accuracy. They're detail-oriented, methodical, and they need to have all the information before making a decision. They're the ones who will carefully analyze every angle, weighing the pros and cons before taking action.
They sound like the researchers, the data crunchers. What do we keep in mind when communicating with a blue?
Be prepared to back up your statements with evidence. Avoid generalizations and emotional arguments. Blues need to see the data, the logic behind your reasoning, and don't rush them. They need time to process information and make sure everything adds up.
So clear, concise, and data-driven. Now, having explored all 4 types, it's clear that each brings a unique perspective and communication style to the table. And as we've seen, these differences can easily lead to misunderstandings and frustration.
Right. And that's where the real power of understanding these personality types comes in. It's not about labeling people. It's about developing a deeper understanding of why people react the way they do and adjusting your communication style accordingly. You realize it's not about them changing, it's about you adapting. And when you make that shift in perspective, communication becomes much smoother and more effective.
So let's get practical. How can you, our listener, apply this knowledge to your own interactions? What are some specific strategies for communicating with each type?
Absolutely. Let's start with red. If you're dealing with a red, remember that they value efficiency and directness. So be clear, concise, and get to the point quickly. Don't waste their time with unnecessary details or emotional appeals. With yellows, it's all about enthusiasm and positive energy. Be engaging, creative, and let them brainstorm ideas. Just make sure to gently steer them back on track if they get too sidetracked. With greens, patience and reassurance are key. Give them time to adjust to new ideas, create a safe and non-confrontational environment, and emphasize how your ideas will benefit the group and maintain harmony. When dealing with a blue, be prepared to provide evidence and facts. Avoid vague statements and emotional arguments. Be thorough and logical in your explanations and give them the time they need to analyze the information.
So understanding these 4 types can really transform how you approach conflict. It can help you de-escalate situations, find common ground, and reach solutions that work for everyone.
Exactly. Let's say you're facing a conflict with a red. Their natural instinct is to confront it head-on, so be direct, solution-oriented, and don't back down easily. With a yellow, try to keep the atmosphere light and positive. Focus on finding a collaborative solution that everyone feels good about. Avoid getting bogged down in negativity or placing blame. With a green, create a safe and calm environment where they feel comfortable expressing their concerns. Listen patiently, acknowledge their feelings, and work towards a solution that restores harmony and balance. When in conflict with a blue, be prepared to present a logical and well-reasoned case. Stick to the facts, avoid emotional appeals, and be patient as they work through the problem step by step.
It's fascinating to see how understanding these personality types can provide such valuable insights into how people approach conflict. Now, let's take a step back and look at the history behind these ideas. Where did the DISC model originate?
The DISC model was developed by William Moulton Marston back in the 1920s. He was a psychologist who was fascinated by human behavior and wanted to understand the different ways people interact with the world.
So it's been around for quite a while. Were there any other influential thinkers who contributed to this field?
Oh, absolutely. Carl Jung, a Swiss psychiatrist, had a huge impact on personality theory. His work on psychological types explored the different ways people perceive and judge the world, and you can definitely see some parallels with the DISC model.
And what about the author of Surrounded by Idiots, Thomas Erikson? What's his background?
Erikson is a Swedish behavioral expert and leadership coach. He spent years working with individuals and organizations, helping them improve communication and build stronger relationships. And his book is really a distillation of all that practical experience.
Now, some people might argue that personality models like DISC oversimplify human behavior. What's Erikson's take on that?
He acknowledges that, of course, people are complex, and no model can perfectly capture all the nuances of human personality, but he also emphasizes the practical value of the DISC model as a tool for improving communication and understanding. It's not about putting people in rigid boxes, but rather about recognizing patterns and tendencies that can help us navigate our interactions more effectively.
Right. It's a framework, a starting point for understanding, not a definitive label. Speaking of understanding, there were some really powerful quotes from the book that really stuck with me.
Me too. Like this one. Most people are not actually idiots. They just understand the world differently than you do. It's so simple, but so profound.
It's a great reminder that most communication breakdowns aren't about malice or stupidity, but rather about different perspectives.
Here's another one that really resonated with me. To get through to someone, you must speak their language, not yours. It highlights the importance of adapting your communication style to the person you're interacting with.
And this one really emphasizes the importance of self-awareness. Understanding others begins with understanding yourself.
It's so true. Recognizing your own communication style and potential blind spots is crucial for effective communication. And finally, this quote really captures the essence of the 4 personality types. A red will always want to win, but a blue will make sure the numbers add up before playing.
It paints such a vivid picture of the differences in motivation and approach. So thinking about all this, what are the practical benefits for our listeners? How can understanding the DISC model make a difference in their lives?
Well, in your personal life, it can lead to deeper, more fulfilling relationships. Imagine being able to understand why your partner or friend reacts the way they do and communicate with them in a way that truly resonates. Less conflict, more connection.
That's a huge win. And what about in the workplace? How can understanding these personality types impact professional success?
It can be a game changer for teamwork, leadership, and productivity. Imagine being able to tailor your communication style to motivate each member of your team effectively, or navigate difficult conversations with colleagues in a way that minimizes conflict.
It sounds like a recipe for a much more harmonious and productive work environment.
Exactly. And it's not just limited to personal and professional relationships. This knowledge can be applied to any interaction, from negotiating a business deal to simply having a more enjoyable conversation with a stranger.
So, to sum up, Surrounded by Idiots offers a practical and insightful framework for understanding why people behave the way they do, and more importantly, how to communicate with them more effectively.
It's not about changing people, it's about understanding them and adapting your approach.
It's about recognizing that different doesn't mean wrong, and that by embracing these differences, we can create a world where communication is less frustrating and more fulfilling.
Think about your interactions today. Can you start to see the DISC model at play? And how might a slight adjustment in your communication style lead to a better outcome tomorrow?
If you're ready to unlock the secrets of communication mastery and transform your interactions, be sure to grab a copy of Surrounded by Idiots by Thomas Erikson. You'll find a link in the description below.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to subscribe to Books and Bytes for more explorations into the ideas that shape our world.
Until next time, happy communicating.